Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So with so many different credit card options out there and all these different targeted offers and credit card advertisements, it can definitely be overwhelming and confusing at times to be able to understand how you can go from beginner or starter credit cards with little or low credit limits and work your way up to the most premium cards on the credit card market. And that's why in today's video, we're gonna be covering how you can climb the credit card ladder. And by doing the things that we talk about in today's video, you're gonna be able to go from those beginner credit cards with very little credit limits, and you'll be able to work your way up to the most premium cards on the market, as well as gaining things like higher credit limits, travel rewards, and a bunch of other cool benefits that we'll get into as well. Really quickly before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to two other credit card YouTubers, Ben Hedges and Daniel Braun. Both of their channels were actually the inspiration behind this video, and I figured it would be cool to do something similar but put my own take on it and show you guys how you can climb the credit card ladder. So I will leave a link to both of their channels down in the description so you can check them out. They are now first up on the list for the first category of credit cards. We have our tier 1 credit cards. Now this is going to be for the individual who's either just starting out with credit and has either very limited credit history or no credit history at all, or this could also be the individual who is currently working on rebuilding their credit and trying to work their way back up. And so starting out when you're a beginner and you're new to credit, you're going to be one of two categories. You're either going to have a very low credit score or maybe not even really a credit score at all. And that's just gonna be due to the fact that you have either no credit history whatsoever, if this is gonna be your first credit card, or you have very limited credit history. Now, this is also going to apply to a person who may be rebuilding their credit and trying to work their way back up. You're starting kind of from step one. You have credit history, but you're trying to get your score back up and rebuild. Now, the credit cards in this category, well, they're not gonna be premium credit cards and they're gonna have lower credit limits, typically of a few $100s, and they're not going to really give you any perks like cashback or anything like that. These are going to be a necessary tool to still utilize when you're just starting out, because this is what's going to allow you to actually start building and establish that credit relationship as well as your credit history. When it comes to tier 1 cards, you have a few different options that you can choose from. The first one that we're going to talk about is going to be student credit cards. If you are someone who is currently attending college, then you are eligible to apply for one of these credit cards. Now, one of the most popular ones would be coming in from Discover, and that's going to be the Discover student card. It's a very popular, good starter card, and with this, you're going to be able to get started in building that credit relationship. Now, sometimes, unfortunately, the way that the credit system works is that even though you're a student and stuff like that, and you're just trying to start out, sometimes if you have absolutely no credit history at all, sometimes credit issuers won't approve you for that student card just because they want to see you established a little bit more, so you can show that they're going to be able to trust you with the credit that you're receiving. So if you don't initially get approved for that student card, the next step to do is getting something known as a secured credit card. Now, this is going to differ from your typical credit card, because when you get a regular credit card, that credit issuer is giving you a credit that you can spend and then pay back at the end of the month. Now, with a secured credit card, the way that that's going to work is you're going to go to that credit issuer. It could be something like the Capital One Platinum secured card, or if your credit union or financial institution has secured credit cards, you can go through them as well. But how this is going to work is you're going to go to that financial institution or credit issuer, and you're going to apply for a secured credit card. Now, what the secured credit card is it's a secured line of credit requiring you to put a deposit of around $200 down up front. Now, that deposit that you put down is actually going to be your credit limit, and that's because since you have no credit history, they want to establish that trust and relationship with you. So your initial credit limit is that $200 deposit, and so this means for whatever reason, if something happens, you're not actually able to pay that back, then the bank or credit card company has that deposit that they use to pay it back. Now, the best way to go about this is that initial credit limit you get of about $200, use it for gas maybe 1 to 2 times a month, or food here and there, and then make sure you're paying it off at the end of the month by that due date in full. And by doing this, you're not only going to establish your credit, but you're also going to build your relationship with that financial institution. And by doing this, a lot of times, little as 3 to 6 months, they'll actually increase your credit limit, and then you'll be beyond that initial deposit of $200. And using that secured line of credit is actually going to start establishing your credit history as well as building your credit score, because you're paying it off on on time and in full each month, you're showing positive payment history, and you're showing responsible credit use, and that's going to boost your score and take it from the low 500s or 600s, and it's going to raise you up to the upper 600s and into the 700s, which is where we're going to want to be for the next tier that we talk about, which is going to be tier 2 credit cards. Now, the next card that we're going to be talking about is going to be tier 2 credit cards. Now, with tier 2 credit cards, these are still going to be credit cards that come with no annual fee. However, the difference between tier 2 credit cards and tier 1 credit cards is that in this tier, we're going to be not only getting regular credit cards with an unsecured line of credit, but we're also going to be getting credit cards that earn some kind of reward back, usually in the form of cash back, as well as these cards tend to have sign-up bonuses that range from $150 to $200 that we're going to be getting for signing up. Now, when you're talking about tier 2 cards, typically the credit limits that you're going to see with these credit cards are going to range between $500 on the low end and up to maybe $2,000 or $3,000 on the higher end, depending on where your credit score is, as well as your yearly income, to see where you fall in meeting the requirements for these cards. Now, after you've been using that secured credit card that we talked about earlier for about 6 to 12 months, you've been using it responsibly, paying it off each month on time and in full, that should bring your credit score up to the upper 600s and maybe even close to the 700 range. And then this is when you're going to want to apply for those tier 2 credit cards. Now, a great example of a very good tier 2 card is going to be something like the Chase Freedom Unlimited. That's not only going to earn you a $200 sign-up bonus, but it's also going to earn you unlimited 1.5% cash back on all of your purchases. So that's going to be a great value to have. Additionally, you could go with something like the Citi Double Cash, the American Express Blue Cash Every Day, or the Discover It cashback card. Now, the reason I'm going to recommend starting out with a Chase card first and getting into the Chase ecosystem is going to be because of something known as the Chase 524 rule. And that's just a rule that Chase has in place stating that if you've opened 5 or more credit cards across all credit issuers in the past 24 months, you can't be approved for any Chase cards for the next 24 months. Now, because of this rule and because Chase cards are great for beginners starting out because they earn you good flexible rewards as well as certain perks, and they're no annual fee cards, we want to start out with our Chase cards first. That way we can get into the ecosystem and we don't have to worry about being denied for those Chase cards later on. And so that's why when you're starting to get into tier 2 credit cards, you kind of have to put a little bit more planning into what credit cards you're actually going to get first and what credit cards you're going to start out with. But that's why it would be a smart decision to start out with those Chase cards first so you can get those out of the way. We don't have to worry about them when we move into our higher tiers coming up. Now, with tier 3 credit cards, not only can you expect bigger sign-up bonuses, but you can also expect to be earning rewards back in the form of points that you can then later use for free airfare or free hotel stays. And when we get into tier 3 cards, these cards are also going to be coming with a list of perks. Some of these include things like priority boarding, trip insurance, rental car coverage, and sometimes even lounge access. In addition to that, we're also going to be getting bigger credit limits, a lot of times in the 5,000 to 10,000 credit limit range. Now, the next thing to mention with tier 3 cards is a lot of these are going to be coming with annual fees, some of them being $95 on the lower end and can range up to even $250. But what you'll notice with a lot of these credit cards is usually the higher the annual fee is, they'll have a lot of credits and offers that you can actually use and redeem to offset that annual fee. And when you're actually going to want to apply for these credit cards is going to be when you have a credit score in the 700s to 720s, as well as having a higher income, because having a higher income is going to increase the credit limit that you're approved for. And you're also going to want to have about 8 months to a year of credit history on your report, just giving you a more established credit profile, making you appear as a more trustworthy candidate. Now, I will say with the credit cards in this category, if your credit score is a little bit below 700, maybe in that 680 to 690 range, sometimes you can still be approved for credit cards on this category if you have a higher income. But what I would recommend is having a credit score in the 700s range and then combining that with a pretty reasonable income for the best chances. Now, great examples of good tier 3 credit cards would be something like the Chase Sapphire Preferred or the American Express Gold Card. Now, if you were to go with the Chase Sapphire Preferred first, would be my recommendation, because you're also getting into that Chase ecosystem like we talked about earlier, and you're getting those Chase cards out of the way first and foremost, so we don't have to worry about them later on. Now, with this card, you'll get a 60,000 point sign-up bonus after you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months, and that can be used for $750 worth of travel through the Chase travel portal, because a really cool thing with the Sapphire Preferred is it actually gives you a 25% boost on those points when you book through their travel portal. And combining that with the Freedom Unlimited that we mentioned earlier, you can actually take those Freedom Unlimited points that you earn and then transfer them over to the Sapphire Preferred and redeem them for travel at a higher value for those points. This card does also give you some nice earnings, like 3 times points back on dining, takeout, and delivery, 3x points back on online grocery, and then 1x back on everything else. Now, this card does come with an annual fee of $95, but Chase does give you an annual $50 hotel credit that you can use to offset that and make your annual fee effectively $45 a year. Now, the next tier 3 card we have is going to be the American Express Gold Card. This is going to be a very beneficial card for anybody to have, because it's going to be earning you 4x points back on dining as well as grocery store purchases. And for most of us, food is where we tend to spend a lot of money. And so earning 4x points back on that is going to be very beneficial. Now, typically you'll see a sign-on bonus of about 60,000 points. If you search around a little bit, you can even find 70,000, or if you have a referral from somebody, you can even get 90,000 points for a sign-up bonus with this card. But with those points, you're going to be able to use them for travel through the American Express travel portal, or you can transfer them out to one of American Express's partners, such as a hotel partner or airline partner. By doing that, you'll be able to get a little bit more value out of those points. The American Express Gold Card is going to have a higher annual fee, coming in at $250 a year. However, this card does come with 2 sets of credits that total up to $240 a year that you can use to offset that annual fee. And those are going to be in the form of 2 $10 monthly statement credits. One of those is going to be to Uber that you can use for Uber Eats or Uber rides. The other one is going to be $10 a month in the form of a dining credit for things like Grubhub, Cheesecake Factory, Shake Shack, and a few other locations. Now, I would say pretty much anybody can use the Uber credit fairly easily if you take an Uber every now and then, or if you just want to grab lunch one day, you can actually order for pickup through the Uber Eats app. Avoid the delivery fee and you'll still be able to use that $10 credit. I would say that the dining credit can be a little bit difficult to use depending on where you tend to dine out at. I know personally for myself, I don't eat at Shake Shack or Cheesecake Factory or use Grubhub all that much, so that credit isn't as beneficial to me, but depending on where you dine out, you can still get good use out of that credit. As well as with all of that, the American Express Gold Card is actually going to be something known as a charge card. So it doesn't have a preset credit limit like your traditional credit cards that we've talked about up until this point. The American Express Gold Card comes with a credit limit based off of your spending habits. So while there is no preset credit limit, you have to pay your bill off on time and in full each month, meaning you can't carry any balances, which I would recommend you avoid doing anyways. But with this card, you do have to pay your bill off on time and in full each month. So if you're someone who spends around $5,000 to $8,000 a month on this card, then you'll typically have a, again, theoretical credit limit in that range, but there's no actual physical set credit limit. It's just based off of your spending patterns. Now, when you want to apply for a tier 4 credit card is going to be when you have about 1.5 to 2 years of credit history on your report. I would also recommend having a credit score of around 720, as well as having a good income of around $50,000 to $60,000 per year for the best chances of being approved for one of these credit cards. As well as you want to make sure that you're able to afford the annual fees of these credit cards if you're not going to be utilizing those credits to kind of get that money back. So having an income of about $50,000 to $60,000 per year puts you in a good place for having one of these credit cards. Moving on to tier 4 credit cards. These credit cards are going to be coming in with higher annual fees, usually ranging between $550 for something like the Sapphire Reserve card, up to $695 for something like the American Express Platinum card. Now, both of these cards are not only going to be excellent tier 4 cards, but they're going to be cards that you see a lot of in this higher premium travel category. And that's because when you get to the tier 4 category, it's no longer so much about keeping your annual fees low, but the credit cards in this category are all about the perks that you earn, the benefits that you get with the card, and how you can actually use these points for travel. Now, with the Sapphire Reserve card, it'll get you a 60,000 point sign-up bonus after you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months of account opening. Now, similar to the Sapphire Preferred card, you actually get a boost in points when you use the Chase Travel Portal. So with the Sapphire Reserve, you get a extra 50% value on those points when you're booking travel through the Chase Travel Portal. So those 60,000 points become worth about $900 for travel when booking through that travel portal, which is really nice value. Similar to the Sapphire Preferred, this card earns you 3x points back on dining, takeout, and delivery services. It earns you 1x back on everything else. With this card, you also get 5x back on travel booked through the Chase Travel Portal. Now, the annual fee of this card is $550, but Chase does give you a annual $300 travel credit that you can use for hotel or airfare purchases, and that'll kind of offset that annual fee a little bit, only making it about $250. Next up, we have the American Express Platinum card, and something like this is going to give you a typical sign-up bonus of around 100,000 points after you spend about $6,000 in the first 6 months of account opening. With this card, it does come with a heftier annual fee of about $695 per year, but the American Express Platinum does come with a bunch of different credit options and stuff like that, which I'll put up on the screen, that you can use to offset that annual fee pretty easily. My personal favorites are going to be the airline credit as well as the hotel credit, and again, you get the Uber credit as well in the form of $15 per month this time around, as opposed to that $10 a month with the Gold card. Again, like we mentioned earlier, when we're in tier 4, it's not so much about the annual fee, but the perks and benefits that you get with these cards. A lot of times with the cards in this tier, what you'll see is things like airport lounge access, global entry, TSA pre-check credits, as well as a few other things like automatic hotel statuses and things of that nature. And last up on the list, we have our tier 5 credit cards. Now, these are credit cards that you'll typically never see advertised or really talked about anywhere, and that's because the credit cards in the tier 5 category are going to be invitation only credit cards. Now, one of the most infamous invitation only credit card is going to be something like the American Express Centurion card, or a lot of times you'll hear it referred to as the Black card. The reason why this is going to be super exclusive is because, number one, you have to spend about $250,000 to $500,000 per year on your American Express Platinum card to even be considered for an invitation to apply for the credit card. And in addition to that, the credit card comes with a $10,000 initiation fee to start up your account, as well as a $5,000 annual fee. If you're not spending $250,000 a year on a American Express Platinum card, you're not going to many red carpeted events or hanging out with a ton of different celebrities, then chances are, like myself, you're probably not gonna get to the point of getting an American Express Black card or any of the other invitation only cards that are in the tier 5 category. So we just tend to focus on the tier 1 through tier 4 categories. But it is cool to know that there are some invitation only and super exclusive credit cards out there that you can gain access to if you are a very big spender. And that's going to be it for today's video. If you follow these steps on this list, you're going to be able to go from having a beginner student credit card or one of those secured credit cards with hardly any credit limit on it, and you're going to be able to work your way all the way up to tier 4, getting something like the Sapphire Reserve or the American Express Platinum, where you're not only going to have very high credit limits, but you're also going to get excellent perks and benefits such as that lounge access to airports that we talked about, and a bunch of other really nice benefits that come in handy when you're traveling and things like that. Now, if you did enjoy this video and found it informative, I would appreciate if you could drop a like down below, as it helps me out tremendously. And I am curious to know, what are some of your favorite credit cards, not only in the beginning range, range, but in each of the tiers that we talked about. I would definitely be curious to hear from you, and let me know by dropping a comment down below. If you're interested in other videos just like this where I cover personal credit and finance tips, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as turning on those post notifications so you never miss an upload. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you for taking some time out of your day to tune into my video, and I hope it helped you out, and I hope each and every one of you have a fantastic rest of your day.